We would like to thank everyone for joining us today. We're going to go through our solution that will help you in your data integration projects when it comes to Dynamics 365 and other enterprise applications. Let me start with a quick introduction to KingswaySoft. We are a data integration solution provider for Microsoft Dynamics and other enterprise applications. The solutions that we have developed came from the lessons that we've learned through large CRM data integration projects. We design features and options in our toolkits to ease any pain points that you might run into that usually are present in typical migration scenarios. We have the data integration software that you need in your environment pretty much assembled and easy to use. Typically, a data integration project can be a complicated and convoluted process if you want to do it end-to-end on your own. However, if you have a solution with the right tools in your environment, it can make it easier for you to focus on the business. Put your focus on designing the logic of the integration rather than worrying about the intricate details surrounding APIs or how the data moves from one system to another. Of course, with any API, we have new challenges that arise, and working with a tool that is up to date in terms of updating itself to accommodate recent changes or any options that are available through CRM is going to save a lot of development time on your end when designing your integration process. Now, for data integration, pretty much with the SSIS toolkit that we provide, you can integrate with any Dynamics CDS or CRM application that you have in your environment. Also, you can automate this integration on a scheduled basis, and you can extract the data from your CRM system to your data warehouse for offline reporting purposes. You can also use our SSIS integration toolkit for replicating scenarios where you want to move the data from one CRM instance to the other. Now we have one solution that can cover all your data integration and migration challenges when it comes to Dynamics 365. It is a very performant, feature-rich, and easy-to-use toolkit. As you know, it's a drag-and-drop experience with many options, which we are going to see in our demo today, and is powered by the SSIS ETL engine. If you already have SSIS in your environment, you can use our toolkit to leverage your existing servers, even if it's a primary or secondary node or scaled-out architecture. You can leverage our components in your current environment using the SSIS ETL engine that Microsoft provides. You can push the performance of your integration job to have a shorter migration window or integration window as required. Now, the benefits of using an SSIS toolkit is first that it is a codeless integration process. You don't need to have a background in coding to get started with it. It's flexible and easy to use, and as we mentioned, it's a drag and drop experience. If you want to work with complex string manipulation, you can write an SSIS expression. It is also very cost effective, as we are going to see with our licensing scheme at the end of today's webinar. It is very performant as we offer specific features such as multi-threading and other optional settings that can push your integration job to its limits in terms of writing records to your CRM instance or even reading from it.
Quiero, gente querida, comentarles nuevamente, estamos en una sesión sponsoreada por KingswaySoft y en este duplex español-inglés pueden hacer sus preguntas en español, naturalmente, y alguna inclusive me puedo animar a responderles yo mismo. Esta es una solución que, bueno, lo plantea ahí Mohamed con estas 4 características, ¿no? Y quiero destacarlas realmente porque he tenido la gracia de poder verlas yo mismo en acción en distintos proyectos. O sea, poder hacer integraciones totalmente sin código entre distintos sistemas, plataformas, sobre todo también bases de datos legadas que tengan y demás, porque se utiliza toda la potencia de Integration Services. Si has utilizado Integration Services alguna vez, sabes de lo que estoy hablando. O sea, tienes todo Integration Services y tienes los conectores de KingswaySoft y lo haces todo sin código. Y, por ejemplo, en proyectos que he estado yo directamente, he entrenado a personas en muy poco tiempo y han sido capaces de poder seguir y continuar haciendo integraciones con KingswaySoft. Realmente es muy flexible por no solamente el producto KingswaySoft, sino porque además tiene toda la plataforma de Integration Services que la hace bastante flexible. En materia de costo efectivo, yo no sé realmente, o sea, pero es una solución que cuesta centavos comparado con, no sé, si piensas ponerte a codificar todas esas integraciones o otras soluciones de mercado que hay también, o sea, que son carísimas y tienen una curva de aprendizaje realmente alto. O sea, KingswaySoft es una de las soluciones que realmente la curva de aprendizaje es muy, muy pequeña y sale centavos, ¿no? Y tiene la modalidad de hacerlo por suscripción y por por una licencia on-premise, después lo comentará un poco más Mohamed, y además también si eres desarrollador puedes utilizarlo en Visual Studio todo el tiempo que necesites y lo haces totalmente gratis con una solución completa. O sea, solamente necesitas la licencia cuando vas a publicarlo, ¿no? Y la parte de amparar el performance, puedo dar fe también de eso, porque realmente, o sea, están procesando en estos momentos miles y millones de registros y lo hace de una manera maravillosa. O sea, simplemente que estas características, dar fe en español que son así y que realmente las he tenido la gracia de implementarlo.
So the SSIS Integration Toolkit for Dynamics 365 comes included with all the components that you will need to work with. For instance, Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, or AX for on-premise deployment, Customer Engagement in CRM or Business Central, or Dynamics Nav, and of course any Power App that's built on CDS or Common Data Services. Our toolkit will be able to work and connect with it as well. So today, we're going to be focusing on the CDS and Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement Toolkit, where we're going to see the components that you would work with to integrate with your CDS environment. We have 4 main components in our toolkit. The first is a connection manager, which is used to connect to your CDS or customer engagement environment. We have a CRM source component to read data from your instance. We have different source types that you can work with, and we will go through them in the demo. We have a CRM destination component to write data to your CRM or CDS environment. And we have different writing actions depending on your integration requirements. Finally, we have a 4th component, which is the option set mapping component. It is a component that is used to translate the values coming in from the source system to the option set values that the CRM system expects. So that way, in the integration flow itself, you can, on the fly, convert the list of option values right away. When using the connection manager to connect to your instance and our source component to read your data, you can potentially write this data to any other database system that you have in your environment. So that could be a data warehouse, Oracle database, or SQL Server, or potentially any other system or enterprise application. And all of that is done through an easy-to-use drag-and-drop experience, as we're going to see. Our destination component is going to be the other way around, where you use a source component to read data from an application or database system and write this data to your Dynamics or CDS environment. We also have new features we want to highlight in today's webinar, where we now have support for the new field type file when it comes to all the entities in your CRM environment. We can work with the file field in our source and destination components. We also have an option for optimization on source duplicates and want to highlight this option as well. This is useful when you expect duplicates in your source data and you don't want to create these duplicates in your CRM instance. Finally, we have a new lookup feature where you can do a smart name match. So, if the full name of a specific user is in a different format than what the CRM expects, for example, it could be last name, comma, first name, but the CRM expects first name space last name. When you check this option, our component will understand these two names are similar. It's just formatted differently, and your lookup shouldn't fail. Now we're going to go to the demo environment and show you how the component looks like and how you can work with the features we had just mentioned. You begin by creating an integration service project. Through the integration service project, you will find the SSIS toolbox, where you choose the components for integration, and you have a design canvas in the middle, where you drag and drop the components in. At the bottom, you're going to find a section for the connection managers. If you want to create a new connection, you would right-click, New Connection, and then choose Dynamics CRM from the list. Because you have our software installed on your development machine, you're going to find all these types of connection managers that extend the functionality of SSIS. Now I already have a Dynamics CRM connection manager created here. As you can see, we have different service endpoints. Mainly, we support Web API and the SOAP endpoints, and we have the authentication type. So, if you're connecting to on-premise, for example, you can use Active Directory. If you're connecting to an online instance, you can use Online Federation or OAuth. Online Federation is going to be deprecated, so we recommend using OAuth as it offers better security and is what you should be using. Now, for OAuth, you would simply create an app on Azure, use the credentials here, and click Test Connection to test the connection. Now, I am using SOAP for our demo, so I already put my username and password. These are the ones that I use to log in through the CRM UI. Click Test Connection, and now I can connect to my instance. We also have settings such as the timeout setting that tells the component how long it should wait before it deems a request as a timeout. There's a proxy server page. If you have a proxy server in your environment, you can put the proxy server information here. Now for the advanced settings, we have the retry on intermittent errors option. This is a useful feature where the component can recover intermittent network disruptions or service disruptions. Instead of failing the entire package, our component is going to retry certain requests to recover from these network disruptions, so it's going to offer better stability when it comes to your integration job. Once you create the connection manager, you can use it with a source component. In the source component, you can choose the connection manager. You will need the batch size, which tells the component how many records to retrieve in the service call. So this is 2000. If you have 20,000 records, that means the component is going to send 10 calls, and each call is going to have 2,000 records. Under source type, we have entity, which retrieves all the records in your entity, in this case, account. We also have fetch XML as a source type, so you can provide a fetch XML query with filtering conditions or even link entities to join two entities with each other. The component is going to retrieve the data based on the query that you have provided. We also have entity changes. This is a useful tool to get only the delta changes that have changed for a certain entity. The way it works is that it takes an input token and has an output token. So the first time you won't have an input token, so it's going to return all the data from your entity, and then you're going to get an output token. You save that to a table and you use the output token in the next run as your input token. That way, the component is going to retrieve only the data that has changed since that token generation. So if you've run the package for 5 minutes, it's going only to return 5 minutes worth of data. Finally, we have the audit log source type that's going to return the audit information for one entity or all the entities if you query the audit log or audit entity data directly. In the columns page, you can select the columns you want to retrieve. Of course, any custom columns or custom entities that you have in your environment are going to show up here in the drop-down menu, and any custom fields are going to show up here in the grid. We recommend only selecting the columns you'll be working with to make the service calls a little bit smaller and faster in your integration job. If there are any metadata changes, you can click and refresh the CRM metadata, and that is going to refresh the component with new data if there are any changes in your instance. The impersonate as is going to send the service call as another user in your instance. And the output time zone is going to adjust the time zone of the date time values to the option you have selected. So, for example, if you select adjust to time zone of connection user, that's going to adjust the date time value to the connection user. Now, this is reading data from your CRM instance. You can attach a source to, let's say, a database destination, and that is going to send your records or your data in your entity to a database destination. Now, when it comes to the other way around, we can read from a database and write to a CRM destination. So, in the CRM destination, we choose the same connection manager we had created, and then we can use one of these actions. Create is going to create a record. Update is going to update it. Delete is going to delete a record. Upsert is going to create a record if it doesn't exist based on matching criteria. If that matching criteria already exists, then it's going to update that record. So this is very useful for integration scenarios. We also have merge that is going to merge two records with each other. Convert is going to convert the record through the entire sales process of CRM. Send is going to send an email. Execute workflow is going to execute the workflow. Bulk delete is going to create a job on the CRM side to delete records in bulk based on a fetch XML query. For calculate rollup field, if you have a rollup field you want to refresh in the UI, you can use that action to do that. And we have revise quote. If you want to revise a quote through the integration job or integration process, you can use that action for that as well. Now, if we go with the upsert action, you can upsert with the primary key or with the CRM duplicate detection rule if you have created one in the CRM instance. You can manually specify to select the field you want to upsert with. You can use account number, for instance, or a combination of different fields. It really gives you freedom with the criteria you'll be working with.
Just would like to chime in on this because this is a feature that I love, the upsert.
Sure.
If you let me a little bit in Spanish. Estamos viendo Kingsway Soft adentro de Integration Services y las funciones que tiene el conector de destino con Dynamics 365 y las distintas opciones que tiene. Una de esas funciones es esta función de upsert. Y esta función de upsert es genial porque muchas veces cuando tenemos que sincronizar un sistema o otra base de datos con Dynamics, es importante saber si el dato ya existe, por ejemplo, si ese contacto ya existe, o ese producto ya existe, o esa orden ya existe. Y si no, crearla. Pero si existe, de repente hay ciertos datos que hay que actualizar, pero no en todos los casos, sino solamente si varió algo, ¿sí? Entonces, esta funcionalidad nos permite esto y es muy potente porque podemos buscar ya sea por la primary key, si tenemos la primary key, pero podemos buscar además si tenemos keys configuradas, digamos, como campos que los marcamos como keys en Dynamics 365, lo podemos buscar por ahí también, o si no también por algún otro campo que tengamos como parte de esa entidad también es posible. Entonces, realmente la capacidad es infinita y ahí ahora Mohamed nos estaba mostrando también la capacidad de hacerlo en batch y de hacer multithreading en multiparalelo, y eso también lo he utilizado y realmente anda súper bien y permite, o sea, una performance extraordinaria.
So that is the destination component. We also have the optimization on source duplicates that we wanted to highlight. So if I'm using the upsort action and I have data that is coming in with duplicate information, for example, I am passing the name field, and let's say I have duplicates as my name field. Now, if I use the optimization on source duplicate, and I choose write first record only, in this case, the component is going to write the first occurrence of that duplicate set, and it's not going to send the rest to the API. So to test this, I can see that the CRM record ID is only returned for one record, and the other records are returned as null. This is a good way of saving service calls by not sending duplicate records to the CRM instance. As you see here, I only have one CRM record ID, which means that this is the value that came from the API, only for the first record. We also have a smart name match, so you can configure text lookup to do a system user lookup based on the full name that is coming from your instance. If we check the smart name match, as we are going to see, the component is going to be smart enough to compare two full names together, even if they have different values. So in my example here, I have the owner name is Smith, which is the last name, comma, Jane. But in my instance, it's called Jane Smith. And if I execute the package, it's going to complete successfully because I have the text lookup option selected here, the smart match option. Now, we also have error handling. So if you want to write any errors that happen in your integration scenario to, let's say, a database table, you can choose redirect rows to error output. In this case, you can redirect the errors that happen in your CRM or integration flow to another destination component. That can even be an SMTP destination to send an email in case of any errors that happen in your integration environment. So this is going to keep you up to date in terms of any integration failures. And if you even want to implement handling in the middle of the execution, you can definitely do that. Now, in terms of the destination component, we have performance features which we mentioned earlier. The enable multi-threaded writing is going to spin up, in this case, 20 different threads. Each thread is going to write 100 records. So technically, you are writing 2,000 records at the same time. This is very useful if working with on-premise deployments of CRM. We also have ignore unchanged fields, which is going to make the component not send the field if it doesn't have any changes on the CRM side. First, that's going to improve the performance since you're going to save on the service calls. Second, you're going to avoid executing or firing any plugins or workflows unnecessarily because it's the same value. Same thing for ignore null valued field. If the data is coming in as null valued fields and you don't want to send these empty values, you can choose that option to ignore null valued fields. Remove unresolvable reference is useful if there are some lookup references that cause the record to fail, and you want to remove these lookup references before writing the record. However, this option can affect your performance. Enable CRM duplicate detection rule is useful when you want the component to respect the CRM duplicate detection rules that you have created, because when this option is unchecked, the record is going to be created in your CRM instance even if it violates the CRM duplicate detection rule that you have provided. Now I want to quickly show our new product that we have, Integration Gateway. Integration Gateway is a software that sits on your server and can listen for data coming in from different applications. In our example today, we will be listening to data from HubSpot, and through webhooks, the system, or HubSpot in this case, is going to send a request to our Integration Gateway. We have configured a gateway to send that change to a messaging queue, and we're going to catch that messaging queue in our SSIS package so that we can have a real-time integration scenario. As a quick example of how the package will look like, we have the premium message queue task, which is going to listen for the messages that are coming from the Integration Gateway. And then we're going to parse this message and send it to CRM. That way, if I have a contact created in HubSpot, I can capture it automatically and right away send it to Dynamics 365. I am going to execute this container, and as you can see, the container is going to run in a loop. It's going to wait for any change to happen. Right now, it's not going to do anything unless there's a change on the HubSpot side. So, moving to the HubSpot portal, we create a new test contact where we just want to trigger the integration or trigger that record to be sent to CRM. So, we just created one. As you're going to see, the messaging queue task automatically picked it up and the data viewer has showed it. In the data view, I have read the record and now I'm writing to Dynamics CRM. Once you integrate that record, the loop will go back to the messaging queue task, and now it is listening for another record being created. So this is very useful if you have a particular scenario where you want to have real-time integration. You can definitely use our Integration Gateway for that purpose. We have a detailed blog post that goes into details of how this could work. Our licensing model is per integration server. If you're just going to work with the Dynamics 365 toolkit, then these are the prices. For example, 1-year subscription license will be $1,095. Perpetual license is going to be $2,495. However, with the perpetual license, after the first year, you should pay the annual maintenance, which is $695, to be eligible for future versions and support. We also have the Azure option, which is $1,595 to run the integration on the cloud. Now, if you want to run Salesforce as well, then in this case, I would recommend going with the Ultimate Edition. As you can see, now the 1-year subscription for on-prem integration server would be $1,595, and the perpetual license is going to be $3,495, where the maintenance is going to be $895. So, going with the Ultimate Edition, you now have access to all of our SSIS integration toolkits, including Salesforce, Dynamics, and HubSpot, and all the SSIS integration toolkits we have available. However, in terms of the Integration Gateway, if you are interested in real-time integration, it's going to be its own product outside of the Ultimate Edition, and it's going to be $1,499 for one integration server for 1 year, or for a perpetual license, it's going to be $2,999. And of course, similar to other licensing models, with the perpetual license, you should pay the annual maintenance of $899 to be eligible for future updates and versions. However, the cost of the Integration Gateway licenses should be considered introductory prices for the time being.
So, ahí están la información de contacto de Kingswaysoft, el que quiera continuar la conversación.
This is the end of our webinar for today. We appreciate you all for joining us in this session. If you have any questions about our products or would like to have more information, please do not hesitate to contact us at info@kingswaysoft.com.